Okay, this is going to be a little different. Normally, you or I give a message, simply, but something happened this week. FP Presents got canceled because of a downtown concert, and so we're moving the FP Presents topic to here. Do you know about FP Presents?
That's
I know you know. Do you know?
Do you know?
So FP Presents was this idea to take theology to the streets, where we go to a nightclub downtown, you give a message or I give a message with live music. We thought, why does religion have to stay in church? Also, FP Presents has edgier topics.
That's right.
We've done some pretty edgy topics.
We have done. And today's is no different.
Yeah, it's edgy and a little silly, maybe.
Kind of silly.
I hope it's more than silly, but
Oh, yeah.
but we're doing a Halloween thing, is what I was going to even invite people to wear costumes downtown.
That's right.
If you feel like putting a costume on right now, go ahead. But it's going to be a Halloween theme.
Halloween themed.
And it was called Monster Mash, and we were going to look at the classic monsters of Halloween and what they might say to us spiritually, or
about our faith,
faith,
about our spirit, about our soul, right?
So we're going to work our way through monsters.
Yeah.
But first, Halloween. I just want to ask you. You're from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Was Halloween a thing on the island, or how'd that work?
Yeah. So Halloween is a thing on the island. Oh, it's become more of a thing over the years as American influence has come in.
It's been bigger here now too.
Now, that's right. That's right. So growing up, though, I grew up in as you know, Jim, and as I've spoken in sermons, I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian tradition that had a really negative.
They thought it was demon stuff.
Correct. They thought
stuff.
it was evil to participate in the occult and the devil. And so my parents had a difficult thing, which is they knew the pressures that kids face, you know, at school about these things, but they didn't want. So there were years where we couldn't participate in those things at school. And then there were years that they allowed us to do that with, like, let's say, friendlier costumes. Never anything gory or anything.
Evil,
but like little, you know, you could be like a teddy bear.
Were you a teddy bear?
I was a teddy bear one year. Very friendly, kind of ghost kind of things. So I have actually a really interesting relationship. Halloween is not a thing for me at all.
Okay. Well, it's become huge here. Growing up in Des Moines, Iowa, I did Halloween, but I was Batman every single year.
Oh, you were Batman.
Every single year.
Steady.
Batman. The only time that ever changed was when I started taking my kids.
Oh, that's right.
So like one
that's
year,
right.
I was, I put on a big wig. I was Adam Sandler from The Wedding.
Yeah, Wedding Singer.
Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
You know, and I had a guitar strapped and I'd hit one chord. I want to grow old with you. And I'd sing at the door. Remember that song?
Yes, I do.
It's kind of pathetic.
It is pathetic. I want to see a picture of it.
Okay, let's get into Monster Mash. So we're going to look at a key monster. Let's begin with, well, werewolves.
Werewolves.
Yeah, that's a classic one.
I was reading about it. Actually, it's an ancient Greek mythological figure. So it goes back, but it was like in the Middle Ages when this thing began to kind of take a hold in the consciousness of Europeans, and this idea somehow that there's this person like you and I just minding our own business, but then something happens to us at night. And we become enraged.
Sometimes is it because you've been bit by a werewolf?
Yes.
Sometimes, or
that's right. You've been bit, or you've
like with
been
vampires and stuff. There's always a bite that's involved.
That's right. You've caught something.
Okay. Or a virus with zombies.
Yes, that's right. So you've caught something, and now you become this very destructive person in this society that you're living in. And when I think about it, I think we know human beings around us who can become quite destructive. Yeah. We ourselves.
We have a werewolf in each one of us, kind of?
I mean, we can become quite destructive to ourselves, to other people. And I think that's probably why this image, the fear that's there for us, right? When we see each other and we have certain understandings of what's normal.
Yeah.
But there's a fear there that maybe you are not who you say you are.
You know, the werewolf for me also speaks to, do we have an anger we can't control? I know anger issues for all of us, for all human beings, are a big issue. And the werewolf image seems to be when your anger just takes over. Now, I have lots of thoughts about anger, actually, because Anger can be so destructive of human relationships. On the other hand, appropriate anger can draw human beings closer together to work at. I mean, there's a level of anger that can actually be helpful to draw you closer and engage. Or there's prophetic anger when you're angry at injustice, and anger can mobilize and galvanize your energy. So I can see positive sides to it.
Yeah.
But when it's out of control, it just rips things into shreds.
That out of control, Scripture often tells us that part of it is not letting it overwhelm us. Sometimes there's even a differentiation like righteous anger.
That's right.
An anger that's kind of controlled in a way based upon justice and God's desire for the world.
So when Paul says, don't let the sun set in your anger, he's not talking about anger for righteousness.
That's right.
He's talking about between human beings.
That's right.
When it's gone sideways.
That's right. When somehow there's a concern in the community that we're against one another.
And you know, actually, anger management's a big thing in our society. You won't make your way through holding jobs, or you won't make your way in life if you can't. Well, if anger just bubbles over in uncontrollable ways.
I also think sometimes when our hearts break, we also need to normalize that it's okay to be angry. There are reasons that we go through tragedies.
That's right.
We go through heartbreaks. There are reasons why we feel angry. And we need to also companion each other through that.
We do. There are appropriate times, but there's also, hasn't it been said that perhaps anger turns towards self becomes depression? I don't know if psychodynamically that's still thought that way, but certainly there is self-loathing or self-anger too, isn't there?
I've also read that anger often is a secondary emotion, right? That underneath that anger, there's disappointment, there's despair.
A secondary emotion.
Right? And so sometimes we allow it to bubble up and we just assume that what we see is what it is, when in reality, something has happened in our lives.
Okay, so werewolves, that's one monster. We're already talking about all the deep kind of psychological issues that might be part of our fear of these monsters. Maybe it's a fear of our anger. Also, I love the moon's often involved, right? So it's a full moon.
Yeah.
And haven't they said it affects the tides? It affects cycles biologically for us. Maybe, maybe it affects mood.
Maybe it affects, right? I mean,
these mythologies have interesting elements.
It also reminds me that we're interconnected. Scripture reminds us often that we're one. There's a oneness in the universe. Creation and humanity is connected.
So we got more monsters to get through, but you can see how they bring up issues. So let's go to vampires now. Vampires are like super popular. I've heard that they are the common character to appear in movies. They're number 2 to Sherlock Holmes. The amount of movies that vampires. No, so what about vampires?
Well, first of all, vampires are weird to me because there's something about how they look. Like they're pale. They're kind of
dead.
They're dead. They're withdrawn.
Well, sort of dead.
And gory, right, with blood kind of coming down their teeth. That always kind of freaked me out.
Well, it should, yeah. So they're meant to freak us out. Although oddly enough, in like modern movies, they've gotten really sexy, right?
That's a whole nother thing altogether.
So I think vampire, it's such a classic monster. Clearly, part of our fear is around death itself, right?
That's right.
And I've heard anthropologists say that some of this vampire mythology is around prehistoric people wondering how bodies decompose and what happens exactly with our bodies after death.
Yeah.
But what are they?
How they feed on the life force.
Okay.
That's
there's
the
a theme.
thing.
There's a theme.
How they feed on the life force.
So they're bloodsuckers.
That's right. And in Scripture, actually, this is, in the Old Testament, actually, we're told, the ancient Israelites are told not to drink blood because it's the life force.
Well, let me take this metaphorically. So we've all experienced people that seem to drain energy from us. No, I'm not calling them vampires, but I don't mean they're vampires. But
don't call names either.
Don't call names. But haven't you sensed that some folks just take energy from a room, or take energy from you, or deplete you?
Deplete you.
And I think we should, we should ask ourselves, am I draining energy from people in the way,
No, absolutely. I think it happens to all of us. Sometimes it's personalities, circumstances, person might not be having the best day. Yeah. There are, in community, there's always folk who do that to us, and we do that to other people too.
So let's get off vampires. I don't like bats, man. So often in these stories, bats become...
That's part of it. Or the vampire becomes a bat, right?
Well, I don't know, they go back and forth. But Oh, I hate bats.
Weird.
Anyway, okay. Let's go to Frankenstein. Now, I mean, obviously this comes from the great novel, the 1800s,
That's right,
by Mary Shelley. Yeah. I think it's funny that, of course, it was Victor Frankenstein that developed the monster,
Correct.
but somehow Frankenstein's name became the monster.
Correct.
But anyway, so he could create life out of dead matter scientifically, and so he put limbs and everything together and created a creature. What's that monster saying to you?
Well, the whole idea that an 18-year-old would come up with this story is quite cool too.
Was Mary Shelley?
Mary Shelley was 18 when she wrote
rock
this.
And roll.
I mean, I'm telling you, and it was.
It's a good novel.
I think it was a bet that she made with her partners in writing about who could write the best horror story. Anyway, the point is that I've always been fascinated by the story because humanity has a tendency to want to play God.
Oh, for sure.
And control things. And so every time I've read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I think about how humanity can do some really grotesque things because they want to be in charge and control.
Yeah, there also seems to be the theme that science wants to, so science can create something, can play God, create something so that will be to our detriment, like the atomic bomb. Science created this monster. It was a scientific insight in the novel.
Some kind of social criticism of the time.
Well, now with like AI, are we creating a Frankenstein? Maybe that's the Frankenstein potentially. Would we create something, bring it to life? Yeah. People wonder literally if AI will become consciousness.
No, that's right.
That would be Frankenstein exactly.
That will be, and then
if it's bad for us.
If it's bad, well, and even if it's good for us, what does that say about the soul and the created order?
We can't go into the novel, but it's fraught with Frankenstein pining for a mate, wanting a partner, and it's like both romantic but weird and we got to make our way through monsters here.
Because this next one is so popular now.
Which one?
Zombies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's everywhere.
No, it's huge. Zombies got big.
My kids love zombies. They watch Night of the Living Dead, and they watch. It's gross. It's weird.
Well, there have been TV series.
No, that's right. I mean, there's been all this kind of big zombie thing.
Zombies are hot.
They are hot, and so what's the deal with that?
Okay, so I like to think metaphorically or symbolically. And there's still the whole undead thing, our fear of death and what is death, and our imagination just goes all directions when we think about death, obviously. But zombies, they're not really alive. They're ambulatory. I wonder if sometimes we worry about becoming a zombie, where we're going through the motions, but we don't really feel life or an intensity. You know, I mean, Jesus said, "I've come that you may have life and have it abundantly."
Abundantly.
And that's exactly what a zombie doesn't have. There's a sense of intensity and verb and life itself. They feel nothing. I think some people worry that they just don't feel anything at some.
Yeah.
Zombie stuff can make me sad if I think about it.
Well, I think there's a numbness that all of us can feel in our lives. Sometimes we feel it and we know it. We feel just numb. That's a symptom maybe of something deeper. But there are other times others might perceive that in us. There's that emptiness. I've looked into the eyes of someone who had an empty look.
Well, now you're scaring me.
No, seriously.
No,
it's
we're not trying
scary.
to turn people into monsters.
No.
But because, well, we all also need a certain intensity in life. You need a verve. I mean, that's what human beings pine for. And certainly being a zombie is lacking verve.
So I hope part of it for me is that we hope we companion one another into that abundance that we talk, that joy, that connectedness, that sense of feeling something and being alive. Now, that being alive is complicated. It has good parts and not so good parts, but feeling and connected.
You know, we didn't get into it, and we won't in this digital worship, but monsters also represent the whole paranormal. Do you imagine that there's beings of other realms and such? And in the Bible, clearly, we have, I wouldn't call them monsters, but what do we have? Samuel's ghost appears.
Yes, which is awesome.
In First Samuel, the Witch of Endor calls back his ghost. That's right. So we have a great ghost story.
Yeah, a really good one.
Is there another biblical monster in your mind?
Well, there is paranormal activity in Daniel where a hand writes on the wall.
In visions, right?
Yes.
So like in Revelation, the beast and the dragon.
Yes.
So in visions, there's lots of stuff. But what about the Nahalim? In Genesis, in Genesis 6, the angels have sex with human beings,
and they create this.
That's kind of weird, isn't it?
This beings.
Yeah, and in the early translations, they were giants. So
Yes, that's right.
Are there any other? Oh, wait, Leviathan.
Leviathan,
Sea monsters.
yes, sea monster.
So the Bible has monsters, but it certainly doesn't linger on that. But it raises this issue. Are there more realms than we understand?
The mystery. There's so much mystery in life and human discomfort with it.
Okay.
I think a lot of these monster stories is human discomfort with that which you don't understand.
Okay, so we've been doing a Halloween theme. I think we did end up touching on really us striving to be the fullness of being a human being.
We have. Not just that, but I think we've also connected one another to the many ways in which human life is part of our biblical story and that we shouldn't be afraid.
We shouldn't be afraid. But happy Halloween, right?
That's right. See you soon.